Good afternoon, my name's Justin. Welcome to my channel. I play guitar on songs in Nashville, and today I have an actual guitar lesson video for you. I want to talk about 5 very easy alternate tunings that I use and a lot of my session brothers and sisters use as well in our jobs day to day, playing on records and indie records, big records, demos, songs, whatever. There's just some very slight tweaks that you can make to standard tuning to give yourself other flavors, other colors, other textures. If you're brand new to alternate tunings, if that term kind of makes you think, oh gosh, I don't want to retune my whole guitar, I can barely get around standard tuning, you know? Or if you just don't have any experience in it, or if you feel like you're kind of in a rut, like this is for you. This is a way for you to change one string and have wildly different flavors available. And I'm going to use drop D in a way that you might not have thought to use it before. So, enjoy. 5 barely alternate tunings that you need to know. Number 1, drop D. This is probably the most common alternate tuning, and what's convenient about it is that you literally retune one string. I always sort of fine-tune check the other strings after I've dropped the low E to D. I just want to offer a couple of ways that I use drop D that's maybe a little bit different. In a country track, if we're in the key of D, I will often play drop D just to sort of simulate or kind of move the register of my guitar toward a baritone, right? I'll put a little tremolo on, a little delay, and I'll play stuff like this. It's cool, right? It's not the heavy rock grunge thing that you kind of think of immediately when you think about drop D. And so, like, here's a G chord, right? The string went from E down to D. So now everything is 2 frets higher, right? G's not here anymore, it's up here. So that's a G chord, D over F sharp, E minor. It's the same thing as your normal E minor shape, you just got to play the 2nd fret on the low string as well because it's tuned down a whole step. And then obviously D. But you can get these sort of drony those voicings. It's kind of been overdone recently. We call them tenths. It's like a third that's separated by an octave, right? So F sharp and A, even though it's more than an octave away. G and B, and I'm just playing the low D string and the G string, the 6th and 3rd strings. Well, that's a 4 chord, and then A and C sharp, and that sounds cool with the D ringing out between it, right? And then my 6 minor, so emotional and pretty, right? And then up to the 1. And if you know how these thirds work in the key of D, you can kind of play whatever you want. 1, 5 over 7 with the droning root, 6 minor, 5, 4, 3 minor, or 1 over 3, 2 minor, so, cool way to use drop D, right? You don't have to play power chord riffs all the time. Okay, I gotta pause here for a quick story. This has happened to me a few times on a session. I'm picking up guitars and quickly checking tuning as a drummer's counting off, you know, the next song. And I'm using a strobe tuner, so the only thing I'm paying attention to is if it's turning sharp or if it's turning flat. And if it's holding still, then I know I'm in tune, right? Well, sometimes I don't notice that the guitar I picked up is in drop D tuning. You can probably see where I'm going with this. And so I go to hit a big G chord at the top of the song with everybody else, and it sounds like this. Wow, okay, giant train wreck right at the top. We immediately stop and I retune, you know, because when you're in drop D, it's not a G anymore, right? That's an F. Or an E chord. You know those colors and textures that are possible with alternate tunings that I was talking about earlier? Like, these are the ones to avoid. Anyway, every once in a while, I make that mistake right in the middle of a giant session. So, back to the video. Barely alternate tuning number 2, I also call it drop D, but I call it the other drop D. So, instead of dropping the low E to D, I'm going to drop the high E to D. This tuning's cool in the key of G. So again, having that open string ringing with the D note gives you a different color with chord shapes you're used to, right? My G chord is now just a one-finger shape, and I'm kind of using this finger to play the 3rd fret and to mute the A string. And then my C, well, those are all the same, but then you have this. I mean, that's just sort of this drone, high drone ringing out, you know. And we do that in other keys. We do that in E, where we just play, you know, E, A, B, C sharp. We just have the high B and E ringing out through all those. Sorry, I'm playing it fretted because my guitar's in a different tuning, but it gives you a chance to have some of those higher voicings ringing out in different keys. So in the key of C, with the other drop D, or you could call it high drop D, maybe. So I'm playing a 1 in C, 2 of 4, 6 minor, back to 1, right? So that's C, F, and I'm doing other drones too. This top end is staying consistent through all those chords. G, C, D. Right? That's really cool. So, other drop D, or drop high D, or higher drop D, whatever you want to call it, okay? Now, number 3 is the combination of number 1 and 2. Double drop D. This is awesome. Notice how the that's a step higher than you're used to it being. You're used to it being right here, but we're down a whole step. So again, that note, all the notes on that string are 2 frets higher than you're used to them being in standard, right? My favorite part about this tuning, I'm going to turn off the tremolo and go to a slapback on the timeline. My favorite part of this tuning is playing slide. And it's because I get a major triad on the top 4 strings. That's a G chord right there. It's D, G, B, D. It's the top 4 strings of open G tuning. In fact, we're only 1 string away from, we're 1 string away from open G. If I drop this down to G, we'd be in open G tuning, but that's staying in A. And the reason for that is because I can also, with a slide, get that big sounding power chord on the low 3 strings. Very cool. It's really easy to do funky stuff that's also kind of heavy, you know. I'll turn my Nordland back on. I can play in the verse of like a sort of energetic song. I can play some, you know, around the vocal, and then when the chorus comes, I can play low chords too. So very cool. And it's only 2 strings away from standard. You've only retuned 2 strings. So if you're one of those players who's like, I like standard, or I don't know where to start with alternate tunings, try this. Try it. If anything, you know, you might discover something new. If you change the structure of the fretboard, then what you're used to gravitating toward is going to sound different. And you might find something really cool. That's the whole point, right? It's also to say that, you know, I have a handful of these tunings in my bag. I stepped on my DM2 when I turned my tuner off. I was like, why is there a spaceship landing? I have a handful of these tunings in my back pocket at all times, you know, and depending on the key of the song, you know, songs that are in the key of D and I want some lower power, I'll drop to D. If I want to play slide or I want that top drone as well, I'll do double drop D. I'll even play that tuning in the key of G if the way that the song is written, it wants a low, powerful 5 chord, you know, because D is the 5 in the key of G. So that's another tip. These tunings that we've explored so far aren't just for the key of D, you know. I like them in G, I like them in C. I will eat them in a house, and I will eat them with a mouse. It's like green eggs and ham. Oh, I do love these tunings. That's what I'm hoping the conclusion you come to. So, number 4. This is something I got from Jack Pearson, who has to be the most ridiculous guitar player I've ever witnessed in my entire life. Everything he does is just so effortless and smooth. And I've talked on this channel a lot about getting rid of tension in your body while you're playing, because it will mess up your pocket. And if you can eliminate tension everywhere, not just in the parts of your body that you're directly using to play guitar, but in your legs, in your back, in your neck, your shoulder, obviously your wrist. One of the ways that I carry tension is sometimes I just press my tongue against the roof of my mouth, and then it's like sore when I'm done with the song. I'm like, what was I doing that for? That's been something I have to consciously be aware of. Jack Pearson seems like he has figured out how to be the least tense person in the world on the guitar. Like everything just is effortless, and it looks like water moving, you know, just flowing with nothing restraining it. Anyway, he does this thing where he'll take his G string and tune it up a half step. This is something that he'll do in order to have an open E tuning in the top half of the guitar. So now you've got the top 3 strings of an E major triad just open. G sharp, B, E, 3, 5, 1. Well, wherever you play that, you're playing 3, 5, 1 of that triad, right? And the 1 is the name of the triad. So whatever fret that is on the high E string, that's that major chord. There's E, there's F, F sharp, G, A, B, C, D, E. Well, he'll do it in order to play some of the like slide stuff. For me, this tuning's a little bit trickier because I'm familiar enough with open E that having that major third on the G string kind of messes me up, because I'm also used to the A and D strings being B and E. That's full open E. But again, the point of this video is to introduce people to simple alternate tunings that you can just change some things up, you know? If you're brand new to slide and you want to explore, you know, or maybe dip your toes in open E tuning, this is a great way to do it. Just tune the G string. Just tune it up a half step. And then when you slide into various frets, you can use your ear to make sure that you're actually intonating properly, you know. I'm a big proponent of that, playing something without a slide and then copying it with the slide afterward. That helps your ear determine if you're doing this right. You know, so instead of just playing with the slide, I'll go. So anyway, there's all sorts of things you can do with just these barely altered tunings. So back to standard, and I'll tell you the last barely alternate tuning. Barely alternate tuning number 5. Really, all of these tricks, these barely alternate tunings, including standard tuning, work a half step down or a whole step down. In a way, tuning down to E flat is like the easiest alternate tuning of them all, because none of the relationships on the fretboard change. All your strings are still the same intervals apart. You're just down a half step. Well, that's also true if you go down a whole step, you know? Let's do that. Let's go, instead of E, A, D, G, B, E, we will be D, G, C, F, A, D, okay? This is the tuning, this will be the tuning from my my 55 telly video. Okay, we're down a whole step. In the telly video, I was down a whole step. That's because that song was in the key of F. And now, being down a whole step, this is an F chord. So I can play 1, 4, 5, 4, 1, all in F. Well, that's F, B flat, C, B flat, F. Walk down to D minor. And now in the key of F, I've got those. Now, I got to be careful bending because there's so much less tension on the strings that you can sail right past the note, you know. And that's really the trick to tuning your guitar down, is just being lighter in both hands, particularly in this hand. If I hit hard, you can hear it go boom, boom. You knock it sharp until it settles into its oscillation, right? The string. You knock the string sharp at first. So it's really important to be light in this hand. So let's do drop D a whole step down. This is dropped C. So again, I'll use this to get away with simulating a baritone. That's a C note. A baritone in standard tuning is only a half step lower than that, right? So in the key of C, sometimes I'll, if I want that lonesome sound, or if it's that kind of song and I either don't have a baritone with me, or I just don't want the exact same sound that I always get out of my baritone, then I can use these sorts of barely alternate tunings to get new flavors and new colors out of other sounds. Like this sounds like a baritone, but it's a normal 335, I can get those sorts of... And that you can go sharp easy if you're not real light in the left hand, and if your attack isn't delicate enough. That's something worth practicing right there. Tune your guitar down a whole step and try to keep it all in tune. That may be something that's a little discouraging about some of these tunings I'm showing you. I'm just using 10s on this guitar. So I've done it enough that I know how to be delicate enough, generally. Sometimes I'm, at the end of the track on a session, I'll say, hey, I need the bridge again. I dug in too much. The band was going for a bigger dynamic, and it's a fine line to walk, On the one side of it, you don't have the energy that's matching the rest of the band. On the other side of it, you've hit everything sharp. That's the danger of this, but it's also just really cool. I think it's worth it, to have these in your back pocket, especially if you're in a rut, Last thing, double drop D a whole step down, which is really double drop C. So I can get these same sorts of I can get those voicings like I did earlier in higher drop D. I was showing you that kind of thing. I can also just have the high. Here I'm just muting with the side of my finger, I'm muting the B string. So you're just hearing C's and G's ringing out. C, G, C, G, C. It's cool, right? And what's really hard, if you really want to challenge, try to play slide in double drop C, which again is double drop D, a whole step down. It's you gotta be delicate. Have a great day. I hope you use this. I hope if you're one of my viewers who is kind of, you know, kind of stuck in standard tuning or doesn't know where to start with alternate tunings, I hope you get a lot out of this. I use this all the time. None of my guitars live in standard tuning. I'm constantly changing to whatever's best for the song. And I understand that part of that is because of my job. I'm sitting in a studio. I have the time, to a certain extent, and the luxury of changing tunings on each song. If you were to play a 15-song set list, you know, you're probably not going to write everything in a different tuning because you want your show to move along, you know. When I was a touring guy, I generally kept one guitar in standard and one guitar in E-flat standard. And then if I needed to drop to D, or if I needed to do a drop C sharp, the thing is that people are writing in half-step down keys a lot more lately. Not lately, like five years ago, it was a really big thing. Like every song that would have been in G was now in F sharp, because just that half-step difference gives a bit of a tougher timbre to the singer's voice, you know. Or songs in E being down in E-flat. It's just a little tougher. Listen to Stevie Ray Vaughan. His guitars lived in E-flat standard, right? That's not to say that you can't be heavy in higher tunings, you know, like early Metallica, it's just, I think it's all standard E, you know? And it's like devastatingly heavy. It's so cool, right? But these are just some options, you know? I use them all the time. People in town I know use these all the time. Dropping the high E string to D, very common in the acoustic chair. Drop D, very common. Dadgad is very common. Maybe we'll do a second video on like real alternate tunings, like open G, open E, Dadgad. It's not like you have to retune the entire guitar to get to those. In open E, you retune 3 strings. In open G, you retune 3 strings. In Dadgad, you retune 3 strings, you know, and then the others stay. But you always got to fine tune all 6 strings when you're done. All right. I hope that's helpful. Thanks again for being so cool. Thanks for hanging out. If you haven't subscribed, do it. I offer little nuggets that I've gleaned over the years like this. And I've got some courses coming down the pipe. People are asking all the time, you know, do you have anything? Do you give lessons? I will start offering courses on things, wide variety of topics. Beginning guitar, how to play like certain people, how to, I don't know, I have so many different ideas for what a course could be, and I'll start putting all that together and amassing a bunch of resources for you all that's beyond the scope of just the YouTube channel. So have a good one. See ya.